And today we're going to talk about the third set of skills we want kids to have before they really start to try to tackle their anxiety. And this step is called charge, meaning the skills that help us do. And so what I'm going to show you are certain skills that help people learn to approach rather than avoid the things that make us anxious. So what are the skills that we can do with kids or ourselves to help us move forward and approach? So the first set of skills to know is anytime we help a kid rehearse a scenario or a situation that makes them anxious, they might hem and haw, but the more they practice it through rehearsal, that really helps them get over some of the things that make them anxious. So whether that's talking to a teacher, talking to friends, asking someone over, raising their hand in class, you can rehearse these things, you can practice. That one of the things that go along with that, I call it microskill practice. We don't realize everything we do in life is a skill. And we a lot of times just assume that kids know how to do things, maybe because we knew how. We knew how to study. We knew how to take tests. We knew how to take high stakes exams. And so we assume our kids are learning that too. But one of the things I'll challenge you as a parent to not assume, and if something makes our kid anxious, let's slow down and help them learn about it. Help them learn, how do I make a conversation? How do I make small talk? How do I make eye contact and ask for what I need? So these are all things that if we know how to teach, we can, or we can ask our teachers or those in the education to help think through. But another place we can go a lot to that I didn't have growing up was the Google, was the internet. Was the ability to search, to watch YouTube videos on how to do things. And there's so much at our fingertips. This is one of those things that if your kid is anxious about something, you can try to figure out what skills can we learn about to help them with that. Another thing that helps kids overcome or do when that anxiety is getting them or telling them not to, is to think about what helps them have courage. To remind them of that in that moment. Is it a song? Is it future self? Is it a poem? What is it? Is it an inspirational person? To remind them, hey, what would so-and-so do in this moment? To help get them to do what it is that they want to avoid. And then another skill that's really helpful is I call it stair steps. But stair steps is learning to take anything that feels big. And so think about that from your kid's perspective. Anytime there's a new thing they're doing or a big thing in their life, the more we can break it down to small steps. And so let's think about that, and we will for a minute. But the more we can break it down, it decreases avoidance and helps us approach. And that's one of the things you can do with your kid, is help them see the smaller steps. And then the last thing we can do with anxiety is learning how to problem solve, but in a little bit of a different way. And that's where parents, we love to jump in and shine, but that's why we want the A step as well. Because the A step, remember, teaches us how do we know what our kid is worried about, what is worry brain telling us. And so we want to problem solve around the right thing, but we also want to problem solve in a way that doesn't lead to avoidance. So that's the key, and I call it using your wits. And let's talk about that for a minute. Using your wits is a problem solving technique where we first think about what are my worries focused on? And then how can we come up with any solution that's on the table and identify it's the brainstorming part that doesn't involve avoidance. That's the key. And then from that list that we identify, let's pick the ones we want to try and try it out. So let's kind of think about this. Imagine your kid said, that scenario from way back when we first started talking, I don't want to go to school because the teacher's going to be mad at me because I didn't turn in that assignment. That's what they're worried about, their teacher being mad. So take a minute and help them or think through, what are all the solutions that we can come up with that don't involve not going to school and avoiding the teacher? Maybe it's helping them write an email to the teacher. Maybe it's helping them think through how they can handle the teacher making comments or what they can do to get to class so that they can talk to the teacher. Any of these can work, but the key was it didn't involve avoidance. So folks, those 4 tools are the tools that can really diminish avoidance and help our kids approach things that are making them anxious. But the art and the skill as parents or teachers is learning to figure out which tool to pull out at the right time. None of them will hurt, but some will be more useful than others. So here's a quick tip sheet. If it is something that's new or novel, it's always good, especially if it's a big paper or assignment, to help them outline, to break it down to smaller parts. That's stair step. If it is something that is social in nature, rehearsal, anytime it's a new skill or something new that they're avoiding, to make sure they have the tools, that you've watched some videos, they know how, you've taught them, not just assumed, that microskill. Courage can work for some and not others, reminding them, hey, you got this, and that little extra push at the end. And problem solving can always be a good tool, but remember, problem solve based on what the A step is telling you. What are they really worried about? How can we problem solve in a way that doesn't get them to avoid? So in your role as a parent, you want to, again, make sure your kids are approaching and not avoiding. You want to help give them the tools. And remember, the more you model or practice these things over and over, the more they will use them when they are anxious more naturally. So not just to wait for the anxious moment to do it, but to start to incorporate some of these skills into your approach to daily life. It's always good to think about, even yourself, what do I not feel comfortable, or situations that I typically avoid? What could I start learning about to help me not avoid anymore? And in the next step, we will talk about, now that these are all the tools, what do they look like when they come to life, when our kids are anxious? But we'll also talk about then the next steps of putting them into practice.